Hello and welcome to the video. You might notice something different about my RadioMaster Pocket. It has an orange front. Now RadioMaster sell a number of different coloured cases for this cool little radio. I did a video at the beginning of August, go and check that out. I've just replaced the front of mine because, as those who watch the channel know, orange, grey and black are kind of my flying colours, and I just kind of like the way it looks. Now it's not everyone's cup of tea, but in this video let me show you the process to swap everything over. It isn't particularly tricky, you just need a couple of things before you start. So the first thing to do is peel back and remove the rubber grips at the back of the radio and remove the batteries, put them somewhere safe. I'd also remove the gimbal sticks and put them in a safe place too, so you can put it face down without damaging the gimbals. Unscrew the 4 screws on the outside of the case that are now accessible using the hex driver, and then you can open the case like a clamshell, and there is a cable that runs from the bottom of the main board to a small board in the bottom of the rear case. Just undo that cable and then the whole thing will come apart. With the halves disconnected, we can start to remove the boards one by one. There are 6 screws holding the main board in place, but before you do that, remove all of the connected cables onto it. My top tip would be take a picture of it is how it looks right now, so that you have a reference to put everything back afterwards. My other top tip is to remove the SD card if you haven't already. It helps get the board out when you have removed all 6 of the screws. Remove all 6 of the screws and unplug all of the cables carefully. There is a ribbon cable that comes through the middle of the board that goes to the screen at the front. To take that out, what you do is you lift the black tab at the bottom of the connector. That will free the ribbon cable. Be very careful with it, it is delicate. Once the cables are unplugged, remove the 6 screws from the board, 2 at the top, 4 in the bottom, and then it should come free. Sadly, I needed to disconnect the antenna from the module as there wasn't an easy way to remove the antenna from the top in any way, and it is held in place with some rubbery cement just to stop it popping off. You are going to have to peel that off and gently prise the UFL connector from the radio module. Now that it has no connectors on it at all, then you should be able to remove the board by tilting it from the top where the buttons are, and then once it's tilted you should be able to lift it out because the connections in the bottom, like the USB-C port, will be free. Now as you pull the board out, you will hear a couple of things falling off. Don't worry about that, those are the trims. They're just pushed onto the front of the radio, so just collect those and put them somewhere safe as well. Now that board is out, you can remove the antenna. You should be able to get to it easily by pushing in the tabs at the bottom, and then the whole assembly should come free. Now you can see that there is a screen in the middle, the speaker underneath it, and the 2 gimbals, each held in place with a couple of screws. And now it's time to remove each of them in turn. Do that one at a time and install them into the new shell. Top tip: the new shell is harder to screw into, so you are going to have to use firm force. Be prepared for that. These screws are going to have to cut their grooves into the plastic. And another top tip: install the neck strap holder first, then put the screen in. I did it the other way round, and it meant that I was having to screw in stuff around that very delicate ribbon cable. Then take out the speaker and move that across next, and then you could also just pop in the power button into position. Make sure that you're putting it the right way up. Once you've got those in place, then it's time to move the gimbals. The gimbals are held in place by 4 screws in the corner, and again I would do them one at a time. Take the screws out of position, move them across, and again screw them in. Again, the screws are going to be a lot tougher to go in the first time because they're cutting their way into the plastic. Once all of those pieces are in, then it's time to put all the other plastics in place. Things like the menu button, the system button, all those other pieces will go in with the exception of the roller. I'd keep that to one side, we're going to use that in a minute. I would put the cables coming out of the gimbals and also out of the speaker, just put them to the side so that they're not going to be pinched or accidentally trapped below the board when you put it into place. Feed the power and ribbon cables through the center of the main board, and again put it in the other way round by putting it in the bottom part first and engaging the SD card slot, the USB-C, and also the headphone jack, and then laying the board down. Don't force it, it'll drop into place if everything is okay and nothing is caught. If it isn't dropping into place, then hold off and just check that you haven't got something where it shouldn't be. Once in place, I would turn it over, just keep it in place with your hands and check that all of the buttons on the front are moving okay, the right way around, and they appear to work okay. If they do, then flip it back over and install the 6 screws onto the main board to keep everything in place, 2 at the top and 4 at the bottom. Once that's done, I would just recheck all of the buttons again just to make sure, and now we can start plugging all of the cables back in. The gimbals, the speaker, the power switch. I would refer to that picture that you took at the beginning if you're not sure, or you can look at how I'm doing it here. Reattaching the ribbon cable by making sure that that back plastic black piece is pulled up. It has to be pulled up in order to open the connector, and then gently push it in. Don't force it. If you're having to force it, it probably means that that black bar isn't raised enough. Once it's in position, then just gently press that little black piece down and that will capture it in place. Make sure that all the other cables are in position. Make sure that nothing is pinched and that as you move the gimbals around, nothing is going to get snagged. And then we're nearly at the end. Next thing we need to do then is to push the antenna home and reattach the UFL connector very carefully at the top. These are delicate connectors. You only get a handful of connections and disconnections on these before they are shot. So just take your time, line it up and press it home. You'll feel a very subtle click. Do one final check to make sure that all the connections are back where they need to be, and then we have done the majority of the hard work. With the front rebuilt in the new shell, we're almost there. Turn the radio over now everything is solid and just push home the trim joysticks. They'll just go into position, make sure that they're free moving, and then offer up the newly built out front that we've put together to the back of the radio as well, and plug in the power module cable. That's the single cable that goes from the back shell to the front shell that we took out at the beginning. Do make sure that that cable is seated properly. If it's not going to power on. Close the shell up gently, make sure everything is sitting properly and the clamshell is fitted all the way around. If it is, then put the final 4 screws in using the hex driver again and reinstall your batteries. Attach the rubber covers and make sure all the switches and gimbals are feeling good and give a nice positive movement without any binding. Finally, it's time to power it on and check that the screen lights up. If the screen doesn't power up and you can't see a display, then that ribbon cable is going to be the problem. You need to open it up and reseat that. Hopefully the speaker works as well. If it doesn't, then that means that you need to reseat the speaker cable, and if the gimbals aren't working, then guess what? They probably need to be reseated as well, and you are done. Would have been nice if the antenna plastics and antenna came free with the case as it came apart, rather than having to undo the UFL connector, but that's about the trickiest part, and it takes about half an hour. So hopefully that's helpful for those of you that are looking at maybe swapping everything around. It isn't particularly tricky. You just need to take your time and everything's going to go together with those tips and tricks relatively easily. The only thing, as I've just said, is the antenna does need to be unconnected from the radio system. That's not a big problem. It would have been nice if that just came out rather than was actually held in the front of the radio. I suppose it makes it more secure that way. But just be careful with those little UFL connectors and the ribbon cable. Those are quite delicate little pieces. You don't want to manhandle them. But apart from that, everything is pretty straightforward. Thank you for watching the video. If you watch my videos and find them useful, then please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel a lot. If you really like what I'm doing here, you can become a Patreon and support the time I spend helping others and get access to lots of exclusive benefits. Link is in the video description. Remember that all the videos on the channel are organized into playlists, so you can easily use those playlists to find all the videos on a subject that you are interested in. Add Painless 360 to your searches on Google and YouTube, and it'll help you find my content for any particular topic. Thanks again for watching, and as always, happy flying.